then the ending, of course. How do you finish a poem? Again, there's no right answer. We don't want fireworks, really, at the end, but we do want a nice ending that just, you know, you can hear the door closing, or maybe opening at the end. Something that makes you think, I have to read that one again. So there's no right answers to questions like how should you start, how should you finish, but a poet writing a poem will work that out for themselves, and they'll do it reasonably well this time, and the next time they'll do it reasonably well again, and then they'll fail and they'll succeed. It's difficult. And of course things like punctuation, it's got to be right. Commas, full stops. You must know the rules, I think. Google it and know the rules. When to use a colon, when to use a semicolon, and break the rules in if you want. They're there to be broken. But when I read poems, I needed, if for instance there was no punctuation, I needed to realize that that poet knows exactly what he or she is doing. The reason there's no punctuation is because he or she is trying to create a special effect. Now, you know you get a poem sometimes, and there's hardly any punctuation. There's a full stop at the end, and there's a comma in the fourth stanza. Okay. So you think, now, is this very, very carefully thought out? And that comma is terribly important in the fourth stanza. And if you think that, and you figure that out by reading the poem and thinking, yeah, it seems like that kind of poem, then you think that's great. But on the other hand, you might think, it's a bit haphazard. This person doesn't really know about punctuation. One comma got stuck in there, and that's all. Well, then that's, if you like, a black mark. So it's like the difference between confusion and ambiguity. Ambiguity is good in a poem, confusion isn't really good. But what's the difference? It's not easy to tell either. And of course, spelling. Now, having said that, one of the shortlisted poems has 2 commas that I would get rid of. And one of the shortlisted poems has, I think, a misspelling. But it got through because. So in the sense that any of those things that I mentioned, no one thing on its own would knock out a poem. But in the end, it's the overall effect the poem makes. Things like an unexpected adjective is great. You know, when the poem is going through and there's an adjective thrown in that you just, it doesn't go with the noun. Like Yeats's terrible beauty. Like that's the great example of an adjective that works against. So 1916 is terrible, and he really means it is terrible. Look at the killing and the life that's lost. But it's also beautiful in a strange sort of a way. And that's Yeats being completely ambivalent. Like if anyone was ambivalent, it's Yeats. He wants a foot on each side, and he wants to stay firmly on each side. He was always hopping over one side to the other, and his terrible beauty is a wonderful example of that. And it's a wonderful example of the wrong adjective, if you like, doing a great job. As regards to the mechanics of how I did it, I got all the poems in order, no identification on them, and I read them all. Now, when I'm doing Boyne-Berry's, they come in dribs and drabs, and I read as they come in. But in this case, I got the package from Paddy, and I read through all the poems. And straight away, some poems were sort of being highlighted on my spreadsheet for a short list or a long list. And after reading, I think 3 times, I got down to about 17 poems. 17 poems stood out as ones that needed to be read and carefully considered and were options for a shortlist. Now, at a later stage, I went back and read them all again, the whole lot of them, just in case there were ones that I missed. And I did that twice more, just to make sure, because part of you thinks, you know, am I up to this? Will something very good get by? So, of those 17 that got sort of long listed, I then began to construct a short list of 10. And I have 4 versions of that short list, which has 6 in common for each one, and then the others just move around. There are poems that go up, and then I read them again and say, no, down, and that one goes up. So there were, I suppose, I think it was 5 or 6 sort of got into the top 10 straight away, and then there were a number of others who were banging on the door. But eventually I picked 10. And I made the decision. And then I had to pick a winner. And there was one poem that sort of, now I wasn't deliberately picking a winner, but sort of got into my head as, I think that's probably the winner, but I will decide in the end. So when I got the short list of 10, then I went through them again a couple of times, and I picked the winner. Now, I was very aware all the time that this is a personal choice. This is my choice. Doesn't mean it's the top 10 were the best poems. They were the ones I was most affected by, the ones I thought were most effective. And the winner again was the one that I thought was most effective. Another person doing it would pick completely different poems, I'm sure. Well, I'm sure they wouldn't. I'm sure they'd pick some different poems, but I'm sure that quite a number of these ones would still be there. I mean, anybody who sends out poems to competitions knows that you send a poem out to 3 or 4 competitions, it gets nowhere, it doesn't get published in magazines, and then it might even win a prize somewhere. So it just shows that this is an individual choice. This is not, if you like, it's not a science. There's no marks for artistic merit and then marks for this and marks for this. So I really enjoyed it. I was humbled by the quality of it all on. And I'd just like to say thanks to all those people who sent poems. So thank you very much.